What is up, guys? Mike Marlinsky here with the Metal Webzine. Welcome to episode 28 of All the Metal Podcast. Tonight we're talking Cannibal Corpse with Mr. Greg DiPasquale, okay? Cannibal Corpse is an American death metal band from Buffalo, New York, believe it or not. Formed in December 1988, the band has released 14 studio albums, 2 box sets, 4 video albums, and 2 live albums. The band has had little radio or television exposure throughout its career, although a cult following began to build after the release of the 1991 album Butchered at Birth and the 1992 album Tomb of the Mutilated. As of 2015, they achieved worldwide sales of 2 million units for combined sales of all their albums, making them the top-selling death metal band of all time.
Hello.
Well, there he is. How are you?
I'm well. Happy for bonus episode week.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I'm stoked that you were good to do it last minute like this. I'm very appreciative. I just had the urge, you know.
Good. That's good. I'm happy to be able to facilitate this urge. It's apparently
Right on.
I can't imagine. I don't know why no one else is able to, but I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, I mean, you know what it was? It was a combination of, well, I only know the Barnes albums, or I only know the Corpse Grinder albums, but nobody knew like the whole discography kind of a thing. So
really?
So like that was kind of weird talking to a bunch of Buffalo metalheads like that, but no, I'm looking forward to this, and are you ready, sir?
I am ready.
Okay, awesome. Which album had a more profound impact? Was it Butchered at Birth or Tomb of the Mutilated, or were they the same?
Tomb of the Mutilated.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Butchered at Birth it's a pivotal record because it's iconic. You know, the artwork is iconic, and it's a great record. And you could argue that it's maybe the first. It's not their first record, but it's maybe their first like full-on death metal record, because Eaten Back to Life had a lot of like really kind of more extreme thrash vibes to it.
Yep.
Obviously, the vocals are pretty death metal, but it's definitely a thrashier record. Butchered at Birth was probably the first. We're a full-on death metal band. There's no confusing it whatsoever.
Right.
And Tomb of the Mutilated was probably, I think, that was the culmination of that first era of the band.
Yep.
It's so sick. I mean, it's definitely got Barnes's grossest vocal performance ever.
Probably ever, right? Yeah.
It's a very, that first sound, the first era of that band, or really the entirety of the band, they have a sound. It's identifiable, and you can tell when someone's borrowing it. But there was something very, very unique about those first 3 records that they never really had again after that. And Tomb of the Mutilated is the culmination of that, and it's a truly sick record. And also, I feel like Butchered at Birth should have been the name of the first album.
Yes.
And Eaten Back to Life should have been the name of the second album. I always thought
sure.
For some reason that always sticks me. It would have been so awesome if the first record was Butchered at Birth.
No, I totally get that.
The second record was Eaten Back to Life.
Right.
That would have been so awesome.
Right.
But
yeah. Just
doesn't matter. Tomb of the Mutilated is amazing.
Right, turning it into more of a story. Yeah, that's cool.
And it's cool they got on the back cover, they got that picture of them with that creepy looking statue at the Central Terminal.
Right.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, Tomb of the Mutilated was definitely the one that like solidified the early cult following, like the death metal cult following anyway.
Well, also, it gave them Hammer Smash Face, which is arguably their biggest song ever, and it certainly set them up nicely for what was about to come for them, which was some pretty big exposure.
Yeah, pretty impressive for a death metal band, especially.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell your best Alex Webster story.
Best Alex Webster story. really. I mean, I've met him a few times.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that I know him. You know what I'm
Sure,
saying?
sure.
But the stories or the interactions I have with them are pretty cool. This is a story that you want the best of them, or you want all of them?
The best Alex Webster story you personally have, if you have one.
Well, for the sake of brevity and impact, I'll give you the coolest one, the best one. It's not the funniest one, but it's the best one.
Cool.
The best one is, as I was, when there was, after Tony Lorenzo, unfortunately was shot in late 2011, there was a benefit gig for him in January of 2012, and that was headlined by Beyond Death, which was Tony's uncle, Frank Lombardi. That was basically his high school, early college band.
Yep.
Right, and in that band was Frank Lombardi, Tony's uncle, Darren Pfeiffer of Zero Tolerance and Goldfinger, Alex Webster, and Jack Owen of Cannibal Corpse.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I was, close enough to Tony and the family, when they were rehearsing for the gig, I think maybe a week and a half prior to the gig, all those guys besides Frank came into town. I think Darren was living in Toronto at that point, so that really wasn't that big of a deal. But obviously, Jack and Alex were, still living in Florida, so they came up and spent, obviously they had family. They still have family up here, so they had family to visit and stuff. So I was lucky enough to be able to get invited to their rehearsal space with Brian Pattison and a couple other people to watch Beyond Death practice.
That's awesome.
And just
Hell yeah.
hang out with those guys all night, and it was really, really cool just to kind of, interact with those guys, including Alex as well too. Just to kind of hang out with them I guess maybe more of a level playing field. Any other time it was always like, oh, I'm in a band that's opening for you, or there was some kind of,
obligation.
We were more on like a humanistic level playing field.
Sure. It was an intimate setting. There were no obligations.
It wasn't just me telling these guys how much they rule and how much I love their music. It was just me hanging out with these guys and just talking to them.
Right.
So that was like,
fuck yeah.
That was probably my favorite moment. And again, it's even cooler because it wasn't just with Alex. It was with Alex Webster and Jack Owen.
That's awesome. Hell yeah.
It was doubly awesome.
That's great.
So, hang out with those guys at like basically their high school band practice for a few hours.
Yeah.
A memory that I hope to never forget.
Right. Yeah, I forgot Beyond Death was even on that show. That actually brings me to the next thing I was going to ask you. From what you've heard over the years, which did you enjoy the most? Tyrant Sin, Leviathan, or Beyond Death?
I think Leviathan was probably the best of those three bands.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, their bassist was Greg St. John, I think. And I remember... Yeah, and I remember, because he's Sean and Duran's cousin, so I met him through them, and, that's how I first heard the Leviathan demo, and I thought it was fucking amazing. I was also, 16, so it blew my mind at 16.
It's like having your own local Slayer.
No, absolutely was. Absolutely was.
Yeah.
Okay, your favorite track off Eaten Back to Life?
Obviously, A Skull Full of Maggots is a classic. I love that one.
I love the titles.
It's a great song too, obviously.
Yeah.
Sepulfile covered that song a handful of times.
Oh, fuck yeah.
For the sake of maybe throwing out a deep cut, I'll say Edible.
Okay, so I'm going to preface this with, yes, I'm aware that Barnes is no longer the vocalist he used to be, but your honest opinion, Barnes or Corpse Grinder?
Corpse Grinder. I mean, if he's, even if you're, I'm not, even, that's even without just comparing the two now.
Yeah, sure.
If you just compare you know, the quality of Corpse Grinder's voice, his ability, his vocal ability, his quote range as a death metal vocalist is much greater than Chris Barnes' ever was or is, even at his best. You know, and Chris Barnes, in my opinion, was only truly great, you know, for maybe, it sounds pretty mean, and I don't want to be derisive and cut him down because I don't know the guy, but, you know, in my opinion, he was really only good for, you know, at least as far as recorded output, he was really only good for like 4 or 5 years, you know, and that's pretty much it. And Corpse Grinder, he was great, you know, it's like he was great on those first 2 Monstrosity records. He's been great on every Cannibal record. Like, he's never had a record where it's, Corpse Grinder sounds like ass on this album. No, that doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist,
awesome on everything. Can't say the same about Chris Barnes.
Yeah, the Monstrosity albums were really good too. Like not just vocally, very, just very all good. Around. Yeah. Which do you prefer, Kill or Evisceration Plague, and why?
Kill. Kill, I think, is probably their modern day classic.
Okay, yeah, that's actually fair. Yep.
You know, I think that it you know, Rob Barrett came back into the band, but, you know, and so you don't want to, I wouldn't put all of the quality of that record on just that lineup change, because I think he only wrote 1 song on the record. I just feel like that on that record, they just nailed it. You know? No pun intended, because there's, I think, a song, Five Nails to the Neck is on that.
Yeah,
one,
I think you're right.
You know, it's Evisceration Plague was great, but Kill came before it, and it's tough to follow that record.
Right.
You know,
sure.
Kill is definitely their modern day classic.
Yep.
And to at that point be 16 years into the game and still crank out a record that you know.
Yeah.
A lot of bands lose steam. You know, especially in that genre.
But they were still putting out high quality death metal. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. No bad records.
Yep. How did you feel about Red Before Black?
Ironically, I wouldn't say ironically enough, I think that when it's all said and done, you know, someday Cannibal Corpse, you know, will no longer be a band.
Sure.
You know, I'm definitely not looking forward to that day, but someday they will no longer be a band. And I feel like that when it's said and done, that record will stand out a little bit.
Yes.
There's just a different feel to it. I feel like Paul Mazurkiewicz did some different kind of drumming on it that he hadn't really done before that made it seem a little bit different. There's just a different vibe to that record. It's tough to pinpoint, but I remember when I got it, I remember listening to it, I remember saying to myself, it's undeniably Cannibal Corpse. I mean, I wouldn't say that it was like a record where they, you know, shape-shifted and they became, you know, unidentifiable, or they did something so drastic.
Did it seem a little polished?
What was that?
Did it seem a little too polished?
No, it wasn't even that, because, you know, I think, you know, Eric, they've got a really good working relationship with Eric Rattan, and he knows how to capture them. Yeah. I don't even think it was. I don't think it was a difference based on production. I just feel like there's just the songwriting was maybe just a little more chaotic. I felt like maybe a little more spastic. Actually, you know, now that I think about it, I think it had a little. For some reason, I feel like it had a little bit more of that early vibe that they had on, you know, Back to Life.
Yep.
You know, I felt like it had a little bit more of that kind of chaotic vibe to it, which they hadn't had in a very, very long time. And that's just what kind of, you know, stuck out to me when I heard that record. So I think when it's said and done and you look back their discography, that record, I think over time is going to stand out more and more.
Yep. Is it a personal goal of yours to one day be in a band that gets accused by a United States senator of undermining the national character of the United States.
I mean, anyone who wants to play rock and roll or metal, who doesn't want that?
Who doesn't want that? Yeah. That's like...
If you're going to play music that is, inherently rebellious or, counterculture, then, of course, you would want to draw the ire of the culture that you're countering.
Yeah, the establishment, piss off the establishment.
Of course. I mean, you never want to, I would never, ever write music just for that. I mean, because Cannibal Corpse, it's not like they're like some edgelord band or some shit like that. They're just doing what they do.
They weren't, exactly. They weren't gunning for the establishment. They just happened to piss it off.
Yeah, exactly. And I think someone, I forget who it was in the band, they were like, Bob Dole probably never ever heard them or heard of them. He probably had one of his assistants or advisors.
Right,
or
somebody looked them up and showed him lyrics in an album cover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember reading that a long time ago and thinking that was such a badass thing to have, on your resume as a band.
It is.
So, okay, this is difficult because a lot of them are very similar. A lot of these covers are busy, very graphic. But what is your favorite Cannibal Corpse album cover?
Let me think. I mean, it's very, very graphic, obviously, but Tomb of the Mutilated, after all these years, is still pretty intense.
Yep. Yeah.
That's still pretty intense. I mean, the 1-2 punch of Butchered at Birth and Tomb of the Mutilated, I mean, it's no wonder they started having problems with distribution in other countries and stores and stuff like that.
They were banned from Germany or something, yeah.
In a society and in a world that has become increasingly numb to violence and things that are shocking, those two records still kind of jump off the page as very, very graphic and very, very very, very. They'll if you're not ready to see something like that, that's gonna really throw you off your shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you got to know what you're getting into. Band like that, you need a little precursor or whatnot.
Well, also, even if I don't know, if you have any semblance of humanity in you, it should probably always it should probably always chart you. I mean, I've been looking at these album covers now for a couple decades, and I still look at those covers and just still like, wow.
They take you aback a bit, yeah, sure.
They're still incredibly graphic and violent, and they're the, you want to talk about, because obviously the process of creating an album, from the music all the way to the artwork, it's about creating a total package,
Mm-hmm.
And you want to have, there's a reason why album art exists. It's supposed to supplement, it's supposed to tie itself into the music, it's supposed to sell,
visually convey what you're hearing,
visually put to someone in someone's face who has no idea what they're looking at. If you had never heard Cannibal Corpse before, someone drops those two album covers right in front of you, and you see the artwork and you see the name Cannibal Corpse, I think you have a pretty good idea of what you're going to be getting yourself into if you listen to it.
Oh yeah.
And those album covers nail it.
It sells itself, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Performs as advertised. Have you ever been personally offended by any Cannibal Corpse artwork?
No.
No.
I haven't. No.
Well, some people have, but I had to ask. What was the first Cannibal Corpse riff or song that you learned how to play?
Probably A Skull Full of Maggots.
That was the one Seplophile covered, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. What's your favorite song title out of these? I Come Blood, Meat Hook Sodomy, or Entrails Ripped from a Virgin's Cunt?
I knew that was going to be the third one. I would say Entrails, just because like, again, that's still incredibly graphic, and that's still incredibly...
It's hard to say. It was hard for me to just say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you can, even in casual conversation with someone, you know, I don't even know how you can even casually discuss this, but, like, I feel like words like cum and blood and sodomy are much more digestible and easier to discuss than entrails ripped from a virgin's cunt. I mean, there's just, like,
that paints the whole picture right there.
There's so many hot button words in that song title.
Yeah.
I mean,
ding 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 ding, right?
Yeah.
Oh man. What's the coolest drum part you can think of on any Cannibal Corpse record? Like the first one that jumps out at you when you think about drums.
That's a great question, because I feel like Mazurkowitz has kind of been... I think time has been kind to his style and his ability. I think he's, you know, the longer that band has gone on, I think the more people have given him the credit for being kind of a stylistic innovator. I mean, he was never the fastest drummer. It's not like he was like his blast beats were never super fast, but his blasting style was unique.
Very unique style drummer, yeah.
No one did blast beats like that before he did. And he kind of has like a groove to the blast beat. Just his whole style has just like kind of like in a genre where a lot of the drumming is kind of uniform, and there really isn't a lot of individual... I mean, I wouldn't say there isn't a lot of individual flavor, but the flavor is, you know, it's like the difference between, you know, chocolate ice cream and chocolate chip ice cream, you know? I mean,
yeah,
like,
sure.
You know, it's kind of like the same vibe, but he has a different kind of vibe. And he has a way of doing things, because he's kind of an unconventional drummer, and because he wasn't cut from any kind of, you know, typical mold of an extreme metal drummer, because he comes from more of a thrash background. I feel like he kind of approached death metal from a different way. Also, look at who the other half of his rhythm section is, Alex Webster.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So I think that probably had something to do with it as well. So, with that in mind, I think I will go with, off of Tomb of the Mutilated, the song Post-Mortal Ejaculation.
Yep.
The way he comes in to that song, it's very peculiar.
It is. I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
The first time I heard it, it's just a very, very unique way of coming into a song and meeting up with the riff.
Yep.
You know, he kind of comes in on a I don't, you know, see, this is where my lack of musical
theory, right,
knowledge kind of
terminology,
shows my ass a little bit here. I don't know if it's on an upbeat or a downbeat, but he comes in on a atypical beat. Like he comes in a way that at least I didn't expect.
Right.
It still sounds unique to me every time I hear it. Just very, very, very unique way of entering that song.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right off, just going by your gut, your favorite lyric?
So many to choose, and I know it's funny that we were talking about in the death metal episode this week how, you know, obviously there's anomalies and there's exceptions to every rule, right? You know, not everything is not everything is absolute.
Sure.
Know? And I said that, you know, constant violence ultimately becomes less violent because of the, you know, the propensity of it, and just the the amount of it, but I feel like because of the way they write lyrics, it's always, I mean, it's constant violence with Cannibal Corpse.
It really is,
constant
right?
Violence.
The personality
of
the band.
Reason, it never, because that's their thing, it works. It's like, with AC/DC, you know, it's like, how many songs are you going to listen to, you know, them, you know, just double, triple, quadruple entendre lyrics of, you know, trying to get with a lady, you know?
Yep.
It's like,
Yep.
it never gets old, you know, and Cannibal Corpse is, you know, is that exception to, you know, what I said, where their constant violence is, it never loses its luster, because they've always had a unique way and a fresh way of patterning the vocals and using like the perfect words for the lyrics. And hang on. And sometimes it's something so simple
Or subtle, yeah.
But it's simple and subtle, but it's so perfectly, intimidatingly descriptive.
Yep.
That they just nail it. And hang on, let me just look it up. I think it's in Code of the Slashers, which is off of Red Before Black. Hang on a second here. Let me just look it up so I don't butcher it here. No pun intended. Butchered at birth. Oh, come on, Internet. Give me a second here.
Sure.
But it's I just want to get it right, because it's...
No, I get it.
It's not that it's so different from, you know, anything else they've done, but it was just, they nailed it. They nailed it. There it is. Okay, hang on 1 second. I found it. Jagged are the knives we wield. You know you're gonna lose this fight. Your hand's a useless shield.
Right. Yeah.
Just think of that imagery.
Yep. Yep.
Which I think
that is perfect.
Basically, the album cover for that as well too. I mean, just think of the imagery of just. I mean, it's so violent. Just think of the imagery of someone, you know, being stabbed to death, and their last
line of defense is their bare fist, right?
It's to put their hands up.
Yep.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, when someone's wielding a knife. I mean, it's so graphic and violent, and
it makes a point too. Yeah.
It really is just like a really intimidating way, a very, very graphic, simple way of describing what's happening there.
I'm glad you looked it up to get the wording right, because the wording is crucial there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay, so what was
it's horrifying. I mean, I you know, and Cannibal Corpse they've never glorified their own lyrics. I've seen and read countless interviews where Alex Webster has said, you know, we don't recommend anyone go out and do the things we talk about in our songs, because they're horrible things.
Yeah, of course.
Unfortunately, they're just mirroring the society that they live in.
Yeah, and they're also just selling death metal.
We're you know, humans. I mean, we're brutal.
Yep.
You know, and so unfortunately these things do happen. So I mean, it's really their lyrics. You know, it's almost like the rest of the world and news itself caught up to Cannibal Corpse.
Yep.
Oh,
sure.
Like, whereas before, like, their lyrics were very, very super graphic and super kind of like dark underworld stuff.
Well, it seemed exaggerated, and then you started
and horrible news, and just no news is good news.
Right.
You know, society caught up to them. Right now, all they're really doing is really not
talking about what's really in the limelight in mainstream media right now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can get the same thing from Cannibal Corpse lyrics by putting on the news right now.
Yep.
You know, I mean,
it's absolutely. Yep.
You know, it's unfortunate. It's terrible, but you know, they just are the soundtrack to a really, really brutal world.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. Great way to put that, for sure. What was the first Cannibal Corpse song you remember hearing, aside from the scene with Cannibal Corpse and Ace Ventura?
Okay, well, that changes the question then. That changes the answer.
Yes. Yeah.
Hammer Smash Face is definitely the answer, but if we're going to take that away...
Yep.
I'm going to say... Mummified and Barbed Wire off of Vile.
Okay. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I gotta figure out how I'm gonna word this. Okay. So what I'm looking for now are... Okay. So, from the Barnes era of the band, what is your favorite riff? I guess I'm looking for your favorite riff and your favorite solo from the Barnes era, and then your favorite riff and solo from the Corpse Grinder era. Just whatever jumps out at you.
The riff thing is... Cannibal Corpse is never really about solos to me, because it's almost... Their solos were mostly coming from the Slayer side of things. Very, very seldom do they have solos that were kind of...
Memorable. They're just incredibly fast and shreddy, yeah.
Memorable, yeah. But there are two that come to mind. I'll get to that in a little bit. We'll do riffs first. All right, favorite riff of the Barnes era. I mean, I know it's maybe tacky or hacky or new kid of me, but you can't ever go wrong with Hammer Smash Face. I mean, and I said it on the death metal episode, they might have written the ultimate death metal song. Right. Every riff in that song is kind of hooky and sticks with you. Like, I mean, they nailed that song.
Yep.
Every riff is hummable, and I can't even give it up to one riff in that song. I'm just going to have to cop out and
just
say
the whole
every
song,
riff
right?
in that
Yep.
song.
Gotcha. That's not a bad answer.
Every riff in that song is awesome. Alright, so that's the Barnes era. I will say the best solo of the Barnes era is on the Bleeding. And I don't remember... Oh, shit. I just don't remember the song title. But it is one of the few solos done by Jack Owen. Ironically enough, he's done both solos I'm going to mention. I forget what song it is, but it's actually kind of got like melody to it. It's got a little bit of like it's actually kind of a hooky solo. It's like, like it's kind of got like a cool, old school, traditional solo vibe to it. Fuck, it's
which is very unique for Cannibal Corpse, yeah.
Yeah, very much.
I can kind of hear what you mean. I can't remember it either, but...
It was a slower part. Well, I shouldn't say a slower part, but a more mid-tempo part, so maybe like just classic, cat strangling, dive bombing solos probably wouldn't have worked there. So, he nailed it there by coming up with something that was definitely more melodic, I guess, and more memorable. Fuck, as soon as I'm off the phone, I know it's on the second half of The Bleeding. I just forget the song title offhand.
The answer is Return to Flesh.
Favorite riffs of the Corpse Grinder era is probably going to be Perverse Suffering. That's off of Vile. Again, that's another song where every riff
is money. Yeah.
Nailed it. Just nailed it. From what I know at that point they were still sharing songwriting credits for Hammer Smash Face in that era. But as far as I know, I think all the music in that song was written by Alex Webster. And I know that by the time they got to Vile, they were doing individualized credits. Like, they weren't just giving credit to everyone in the band for writing songs. Pretty sure Perverse Suffering was if I remember correctly, was written entirely by Jack Owen. And that's another one where every riff is just nailed. It's very, very spooky, eerie riffing, tough, crunchy, just heavy riffing. So that's going to be every riff in Perverse Suffering for me. And the solo for that era is also on file, and I'm pretty sure, again, it's another Jack Owen solo, and I'm pretty sure it's on Orgasm Through Torture.
But it isn't, Greg. It's on Eaten from Inside.
And yeah, I know his song title is pretty ridiculous, but
It's great.
That's another great lyric line: "Locks my scrotum in a vice and tightens forcefully."
Yeah.
That's so ridiculous. I know we're talking about riffs and solos right now, but that's another element of the Cannibal Corpse lyric lore, is that so many of them are so over the top and like they're
they paint a picture, right?
And perverse in a way that you wouldn't even think of, But
yep.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty sure the solo I'm thinking about is in Orgasm Through Torture.
But it isn't, Greg. It's on Eaten from Inside.
It's got another kind of spooky, melodic vibe to it. That's again unique because they didn't really have a lot of those.
Yeah, most of their solos were just all shred. You compared it to Kerry King a little bit. That's spot on.
Yeah, the leads, I would say 9 times out of 10, they're coming from the Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman school of doing it.
Yep. Okay. Nah, we'll skip that one for right now. Okay, I'm going to read you now, you were talking about imagery and how ridiculous and over the top the lyrics are, so, hold on to that. I'm going to read you a Corpse Grinder quote. We don't sing about politics, we don't sing about religion. All our songs are short stories that, if anyone would so choose, they could convert it into a horror movie. Really, that's all it is. We like gruesome, scary movies, and we want the lyrics to be like that. Yeah, it's about killing people, but it's not promoting it at all. Basically, these are fictional stories, and that's it. And anyone who gets upset about it is ridiculous. So my question is, thinking about the Cannibal Corpse song concepts that stand out to you, which song do you think would be the most intriguing basis for a script for a horror movie?
Jeez. I mean...
I know, you have a lot to choose from.
That's a huge sample size right there. I mean, you could probably... I know the easy answer. The problem is you could pick any one.
Yep. I guess go with your gut.
I guess I would go with... This one always kind of leapt off the page for me. I mean, obviously they have so many great song titles and graphic lyrics, but let me just try to remember what record it was. I think it was Skeletal Domain. I think it was... No, actually, this might have been off of Red Before Black as well. Maybe it was off of Torture. Yeah, it was on Torture. And I'm going with this one because it's so descriptive,
right?
That it could just be like one of those movie titles where it's like it's so on the nose, it's not really a horror movie, but remember that movie with Colin Farrell 15 years ago, or Phone Booth?
Oh yeah.
Where it sounds like a fairly innocuous title, and then you see it, and it just basically it centers around a phone booth, and so this is kind of like the same thing. They had that song on Torture called "Followed Home Then Killed,"
Right.
You know, like that to me, like, that could be the name of, like, a, you know, just a typical over-the-top, gory, you know, B horror movie, followed home then killed.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's definitely a B movie.
Yeah.
Followed home then killed. No, that's great though. That's great. That's great. In your honest opinion, does Cannibal Corpse deserve to be the highest selling death metal band of all time, and why?
Yeah, they do. They absolutely do, because they've come to embody the genre.
Yep.
Because
great way to put that. Yep.
The amount of, if you think about it, I mean, the genre is death metal. Not every death metal band that's been huge has had songs where everything involved some type of death. You know, like, not every Morbid Angel song is about death. Not every Deicide song is about death. You know, not every, you know, and again, I know I'm naming the big bands, but I'm, you know, trying to kind of keep it relative to the point that of the question that you're, you know, positing to me here. Like, you know, Obituary, not every one of their songs is about death or dying. You know, the genre is death metal, and Cannibal Corpse, every song is about some sort of, I mean,
at least one person dies per song.
maybe not every song. I mean, sometimes people are just
close
maimed
enough. Or
physically assaulted, but, you know, a vast majority of their songs, someone is meeting an untimely end.
Yep.
And in a genre called death metal, you know, they were probably the band that really, really hammered home the concept hardest and most often. And between the song titles and the lyrics and the artwork, they really, really pinpointed, you know, both the visual and the oral, you know, side of everything to the nth degree before everyone else did. I mean, obviously, I mean, so many bands now, I mean, you know, the hyper violence and the gore of death metal is definitely well documented, but, you know, when you think of bands who maybe pushed it to that degree, you know, if not first, one of the first, I mean, Cannibal Corpse is it. I mean, there's definitely gory and graphic and brutal bands, you know, before Cannibal Corpse. You know, you're thinking like Mortician and stuff like that, but, you know, like, Cannibal Corpse maybe crystallized that even better. And to top it off, I mean, this is something that, unfortunately, because of the imagery, because of the lyrics and song titles, you know, they are tremendous musicians. Their songs have become incredibly difficult to play over the years. And I feel like that doesn't get enough credit. I think, you know, I think it probably does now, to a degree, maybe more so than 15, 20 years ago, but, you know, definitely now, their musicianship, the caliber of that is crazy high.
Yeah.
You know, Alex Webster is the tippy top of the death metal base mountains. You know?
Oh,
He's
yeah,
up there
of course.
with, you know, your Steve DiGiorgio's of the world and any other great extreme metal bassist. You know, he's on that Mount Rushmore. You know, and he does a lot of the writing. You know, that's also atypical. He's a bass player in a band who does a vast majority of the writing of the material. But if by chance he doesn't have a song, to have guys like Pat O'Brien,
right,
Jack Owen,
yep,
you know, Rob Barrett, to have those guys in that band, those guys are not slouches either. You're talking three tremendous guitarists right there, you know, and, you know, so they definitely deserve the sales and the accolades. Anything you want to throw at them to give them credit, both whether it be just something simple and surface level, is just basically acknowledging facts and numbers, which is sales. Okay, yeah, right, that's obvious right there. They struck a nerve if they've sold that many records and they've, been the highest selling band in that genre. They deserve that, but also the musicality of that band is, they deserve it aspect as well too.
It's top notch, but people don't see it, especially people not into death metal.
I think if you know the genre and you like the genre, you know
exactly. Then
guys.
that guitar playing and that drumming, everything will stand out, right?
Yeah. Yes, and also and because the genre is so predicated on extremity and over the topness, I think a lot of the bands that kind of followed after them, they maybe lost a little bit of the quote unquote song aspect of it all. Like they went for the bands that followed after them kind of went further over the top with the technicality and the brutality of both the of the music, whereas Cannibal Corpse has really, and this is not a unique opinion, this has been brought up by them in interviews and anyone else analyzing them as well too, like they really approached their songs from quote a conventional songwriting standpoint, verse, chorus. They're into hooks. They are into writing memorable songs.
Yes.
And, in some fucked up parallel universe, Stripped, Raped, and Strangled is a hit song.
Yeah, those are all radio singles because they all have that pop song structure, so you're right.
They're memorable, they're hooky, and a lot of death metal, I wouldn't say a lot of death, I would say a lot of 21st century death metal, when it kind of became about, hyper blasting and super brutal, like, slamming and stuff like that.
Being as technical as possible, yeah.
I think that element was kind of lost a little bit, but not by Cannibal Corpse.
Sure.
They write more memorable songs than probably 95% of the rest of the genre.
Right.
So they deserve those accolades. They deserve those sales.
Everyone's on a quest to outplay each other now, but Cannibal Corpse is still just doing their thing. Yeah.
Yeah, they're busy. They're busy writing songs that you're gonna remember. A day later, a month later, a year later, 10 years later.
Yep. Right on. So, during the death metal episode, you were talking about your personal history with the band, your journey with them, so to speak. You brought up Ace Ventura, and you brought up about how you didn't know they were from Buffalo originally. But,
right.
Yeah, what... Can you expand on your personal journey with Corpse a little bit?
Well, we kind of... we definitely touched on that too, on last episode, so I don't want to maybe...
Right.
I don't want to kind of retrace my steps, but maybe just expand on it a little bit.
Yeah.
I would say that when I first really got into them was probably... I was 20 or 21. And I'm trying to think... I think the first record from them that I bought... I don't think I know. It was Eaten Back to Life. Because, once... because back in that point, like, I've never really been, like, a big fan of file sharing or anything like that, or,
sure.
like, Napster. It was never really my ideal means of obtaining music. I did enjoy the ability to, of that format, to check out stuff.
Yeah, you could preview it. You could screen bands and albums, decide if you wanted to buy them, right.
I thought that was cool, but I never ever downloaded albums from file sharing formats. So I never ever did that because it didn't interest me. It didn't feel like I actually had the records. To me, it just doesn't feel like that. Like even today, like if I can't, there's some records I have that are just I have from like iTunes. Just because they exist only rationally in digital format because the records are out of print, and I just don't fucking feel like dropping $50 on a copy for an out of print record on eBay or Discogs or something like that. So there's been a few times where I've had to kind of bite the bullet. Not too many, probably 10 times or less, where I've just had to drop $7 or $8 on a download of a full record from iTunes, and I'm at peace with that because at least I know that the band is probably getting paid. It's a legit it's a legit source of revenue. So there's that, and I feel all right with that. But it's those records I just don't feel like I kind of own.
Right.
Like I have Purgatory Afterglow by Edge of Sanity. And I bought it on iTunes because copies of that record are scarce and it's out of print, and copies that I do find are way fucking overpriced. And so I just said, fuck that. I spent $9 and I had that
just
record,
get the digital.
but I don't feel like I have that record, and that's just an example. But so anyway, I guess to kind of pull myself back onto the tracks here, it was kind of like that with Cannibal Corpse. I had in my parents' computer we had Kazaa. I don't know if you remember Kazaa. That was like we weren't a Napster house, we were a Kazaa house, and I had downloaded a few songs off of that format just to kind of like, because at that point I already kind of started the death metal journey, and then after I downloaded maybe 5 songs, Cannibal, and they were just random songs. It's not like they were all on one record or anything like that. I was like, you know what? I dig this. Let's get in the journey. And so the first thing I bought from them was Eat Back to Life, and that was cool. It was different. I wasn't expecting that record because the vocals were definitely death metal, but the music wasn't totally death metal, at least as far as what I thought death metal was at that point. It still had very much that Slayer, old Creator, Sepultura, thrashier kind of edge to it. But it was unique enough to where I was like, okay, this is cool. What else is there? And then from there, I think I bought after that, I think the next record I bought might have been Vile. Then after that, I think that year the box set came out.
Yep.
15-year Killing Spree. And as far as box sets are concerned, it was pretty cheap. I remember the Metallica box set when I was a kid, Live Shit, Binge and Purge.
Oh yeah, the Binge and Purge, yeah.
That was like a $100 investment right there. But I think the Cannibal Corpse box set was only like $40 or $50. So I bought that. And that was what sealed the deal, because that kind of provided a broader cross section of their career.
A complete look at what they've done, yeah.
A complete look, yeah. And at that point, I was like, okay, this band is. It's not that they're kind of for me. They're definitely for me. Did the Buffalo connection hurt? Of course not. Absolutely, of course not. Having that kind of local homeboy pride, like that's awesome, but that only gets so far.
Yeah, the band has to be good too.
They have. No, I mean that's first and foremost. The band has to be. In order for me to get that into it, the band has to be great. And then this is not talking shit or whatever, but Malevolent Creation is from here too. And I don't think that I don't have all their records. And I think Malevolent Creation has a period that they were great in,
Sure.
But I feel like their discography is not. I don't know. I don't think their discography, in my opinion, is appealing to
your
me.
library speaks for itself. You don't have all the Malevolent albums, but you have all the Corpse albums.
Right. Exactly. And there is. Malevolent has a few records that I think they're not only good, they're great. And I think that they're maybe, I would put them up there as maybe some of the best that the genre has ever had to offer the world. But there's an inconsistency there that them just being from Buffalo can't supersede.
Sure.
Like the quality of the music has to be there.
Yeah, you can't be biased based on geography, right?
Yeah, and it's not really there for Malevolent, but it's there for Cannibal Corpse. And so, and once I got locked in, the more with each record I bought from them, the more and more I connected to it, and the more it made sense, and the more it just got its hooks in me. Is every record a 10? No, it's not. There's definitely records of theirs that don't get a lot of play for me, but it's not because they're bad records. It's just because, for whatever reason, those songs just don't connect. And there's a couple records they have that, just for whatever reason, they just don't. There aren't records I don't listen to a lot. Specifically records like Gallery of Suicide and like Gore Obsessed, or even Evisceration Plague. Those records are just they're good records. I bought them because I know they're going to be, at the very worst, they're going to be very, very good records.
Sure. Yeah, worst case scenario.
And if you're a band and the worst you could do is very good, then you're doing something right.
Yep.
Yeah. And so the journey and with them it's just great. It's super awesome. They're just, I can't even express how much I love that band. They're just
really fun.
They're great.
They're a really fun band.
And of course, getting to interact with them, randomly and sometimes not so randomly over the years has been great too, because sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes.
Right.
You don't want to meet them because
you don't want anything to ruin it. You want that mystery to remain.
You don't want it, exactly. You don't want anything to ruin that. And it's never been like that. Like, you could tell, I've met people that are from here that have moved elsewhere, and you could tell that they change. They take on
right
a vibe of their new environment. You can just, because obviously we live here. You know people from here.
Yep.
There's just a vibe that we have.
Yes.
That and then it's tangible that you can feel, among your people. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. The familiarity, yeah.
And with them, you talk to them, and they still sound like Buffalo dudes.
Yep. They never
still
lost the
say their
hometown
R's.
Vibe, yeah.
They still say their R's super hard like we all do,
Right.
They talk like us, they act like us, they have a vibe like us. And so it's, anytime I've interacted with them, it's because I've interacted with them outside of Buffalo. When in the Sons of Azrael episode, when we hung out with them in Worcester, Massachusetts at the New England Metal Hardcore Fest. You know, it was just Buffalo dudes hanging out with each other. You know, and we all sounded the same, we all talked the same, and it was just, you know, we were talking about the Sabres. The Sabres were in the playoffs at the time, and we were just talking about Buffalo dude shit. You know, and it's awesome. And that obviously, that kind of bonds you tighter to the band. But even if they were assholes, that wouldn't change how great the music is.
Right.
You know, I met plenty of assholes playing metal.
Oh,
sure,
absolutely, abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah, and regardless of someone's character or someone's attitude, good is good and bad is bad. And yeah, maybe sometimes you're reticent to give someone credit who's just personally an asshole. But eventually, you know, if you're being objective and a true analyst and being honest to the music, you have to say, well, this music is awesome, but this guy is a piece of shit. And obviously, if you listen to enough Scandinavian death and black metal, you kind of run into those.
Oh yeah, they're out there. They're out there.
Those personal quandaries all the time, where you have to say, well, this music is awesome, but this guy was a complete.
This person did something really fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of do have to draw, like, you know, Dissection, for example. Like, John Notebite was, you know, for all intents and purposes, probably not the best dude. I mean, the best dude, probably a shitty dude. But, you know, the 3 Dissection studio albums are great. You know?
Yep.
And so someone being an asshole isn't, you know, I would still have to, you know, give credit where it's due, but luckily in the Cannibal Corpse situation, they're not assholes, and I've never had anything but a good interaction with them, and it's great to see that someone can rule that hard and not be a complete, you know, cunt.
Oh yeah, perfect way to sum it up. Yeah, I mean sometimes vibe is everything, or it's at the very least a huge chunk of what you get out of a band is the vibe of the people in it.
Absolutely. And, you know, they're the kings. And they're the kings not because of the way they are as humans, but because of the music that they make, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's catchy, and there's a technical prowess there that is quite impressive. Like, and they've been so consistent about everything, you know?
Absolutely, and it's tough. It's tough to balance that.
Right.
It's tough to balance that ability to be catchy and musically advanced.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of like Rush territory.
Oh yeah,
that's kind
yeah.
of Megadeth.
Totally valid.
Countdown to Extinction territory. You know, it's really, really tough to maintain that accessibility and that hookiness with accelerated technicality. And Cannibal Corpse really has a tremendous balance of that. You know, they've really found a way to increase the caliber of the musicianship without losing the song. And that's why they're the best. That's why they're the biggest.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so that's all I have for you unless you have anything to add. This Tuesday we're going to be doing black metal, grindcore, and hardcore. So I'm excited about that. 3 genres, 1 episode.
Yeah, it'll be cool. Again, they're important, but not so much that they deserve their own episodes.
Right. Sure.
Individually.
Sure.
You know, but
sure.
They're definitely all important genres to me in incremental ways.
Right.
All part of the journey.
Right on. All part of the journey. All right. Well, this was fun. Thanks for jumping on last minute, man.
Thanks for having me on last minute, man.
All right, for sure. All right, I will talk to you Tuesday.
Catch you later, dude.
All right, take it easy.
Have a great night.
You too.
See ya.